Broadcasting live from Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage, it's Contemporary Inc. with your host, me, Bill Blair, your Lorcana podcast. So I don't remember if you remember last week when I said we were going to come back and review some decks that I had picked out from online and then played on Pixelborn. Well, we're not going to do that because things change and we gotta roll with the punches. You see, I did some calling around, and it turns out that the card shop kind of far afield has a league night. And when I called to ask about reserving a couple of boxes of the new Floodborn expansion, I was told that those cards were only available to people that played on league night. And that just happens to be Friday, and I happen to have the night off. So I got in my car and I drove down there, and it took 45 minutes because, my God, how far away is this store on a Friday with traffic? Not only that, I had to miss my dinner time, which is a shame. But I was able to swing in, and it's October, and that means that fast food restaurants have special Halloween deals. Like there was a Ghost Pepper Whopper at Burger King, and hot damn, I got me one of those. I don't think I've ever expressed my love of spicy food here on the show, but I'm what they call a spice lord, and I love hot things. So getting a burger from a fast food chain that actually had a little heat to it was really exciting. They had ghost pepper nuggets a couple of years ago at Burger King, and they barely had any flavor to them. This had a fair amount of spice. I believe that if the missus had been there, she would have been uncomfortable with how spicy this sandwich was. But as I sat there in a dimly lit parking lot, I found it quite satisfying. I finally pulled in to the game store at about 6 p.m. and I had originally called about that Disney 100 box with the 6 special cards in it. I don't think these are gonna get as valuable as those D23 cards, but I can't imagine not getting it at this point. It just seems like a fun, accessible thing for those that missed that initial run of D23 cards. I walked in and plied my story on the guy behind the counter. He wasn't impressed. He said that if I was here for league play, that was in the back, and there was no one else in this store. So I headed into the back room where several sweaty middle-aged gentlemen were already in the middle of a Warhammer game. Hot on my heels was, again, another paunchy middle-aged man, this one slightly balding, so I knew he was probably going to be the one I was playing against. And he pulled out a deck that seemed to be made of like 90 cards, but when I inquired, he said that no, it was just the sleeves that he like double sleeved all his cards, and that's why they were so darn big, and that my penny sleeves on 60 cards just, wasn't gonna stack up. I told him that I was playing with a starter deck, and he scoffed a little, said that he had a deck that he'd been working on if I'd be interested in playing against it with my base deck, and I said sure. I said, where are you getting all these cards? Because I can barely get the ones, from internet shysters. And he said that his cousin bought 4 cases. And for those of you keeping track at home, that's 16 boxes of Lorcana cards off of a distributor who basically gave him a store's worth of cards at retail. And that they had broken 3 of those cases down. The gentleman that I was playing with said that he pulled an enchanted Elsa card, and that he traded that card to his cousin for all of the duplicate cards from, I think, an entire case. So the cousin kept one set of foils and standard cards, and then he took the Elsa in exchange for all the duplicates. This is someone who doesn't want to play the game. They just want to collect one of every card. And that's a perfectly legitimate way to interact with a TCG. There's great art here, which can be enjoyed whether you play the game or not. And it certainly helped this young man in his quest to, gather some cards, taking a card that might be worth a couple $100 raw and turning it into quite a sizable collection. He had crafted a control deck out of the cards that he had, and it was solid. It was not something that I had seen before in my time on Pixelborn, and he absolutely wiped the floor with me. I was still trying to find one on my D20 when he had already pulled up like 15 lore. He said that there was a card shop way down the freeway, and that they offered 4 packs a day to anybody that wanted to come in and buy them, and they were selling them at retail for $5.99 a piece. The only difference is they clipped the packs open when they gave them to you to deter predatory selling online. Now, I don't know about you, but if I walked into a store and got a tin of beans and those beans were open when I got it, I'd be kind of upset, because when you pay retail, you expect a closed tin of beans. I appreciate the shop not gouging on the pricing, but I'm not sure if it's the card shop's place to stop predatory selling online by opening packs and boxes up for me. I'll do it myself, thank you very much. But yes, he did win and trounced me soundly. It was like 17-5 when I actually just felt like giving up because, one more turn he was going to win. But I held in there and played my role right up until the end. The next person, there was actually another middle-aged man, in his like mid-30s, chilling with 2 kids. He was sort of proctoring a game that was going on between 2 8-year-olds. And I waved at him across the sort of open play space, and he shooed over an 8-year-old with this deck that seemed practically bigger than he was. I don't know from children. This guy was like 8 years old. I don't know, maybe 9. And again, he had double sleeved these cards, so it looked like there was like 90 of them there. And he proudly announced that he had an aggro deck and that he was going to win. This kid had absolutely zero chill. He was very aggressive and came at me almost immediately. He played a card with evasive and told me on no less than 5 occasions that I couldn't touch his evasive card. I hit it with Fire the Cannons a couple times, and I didn't have to touch him. But the kid was quite sure that he was going to win, and he actually did end up winning. I'm afraid that my Sapphire Steel starter deck is no match for something that costs several $100s. There was one point where 2 Warhammer aficionados got into a little bit of an argument, and this kid completely lost his mind. Just turned, mouth agape, eyes bugging out. I was talking to him, and he just stopped paying attention for a solid 2 minutes. I did everything save wave my hand in front of his open face, and eventually he just sort of came back around, and I took care of that pongo for him. I don't have any kids. The chances of it happening in the future are a big fat 0, which is probably good because I do not understand them at all. But it begs the question, where was this child's parents? And who lets an 8-year-old? I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen me. I wouldn't let my 8-year-old play cards against this wandering weirdo. It's not safe. So I tracked this kid's dad down and sat him down And he was actually super nice, and we had a nice conversation. And he actually had a way better deck than even the one that he had given to that child. It actually had the first instance of like a little, I'm going to call it a machine built into the deck that it made a thing happen based on the cards that you had in play. I think there's very few instances where you can have cards in Lorcana actually interact in this way. And this was an absolutely brilliant bit of strategy on this guy's part. Is it a key factor in a bunch of meta decks online? Maybe. I don't know. Those aren't the circles that I travel in, but I thought it was pretty neat. And if there's a name for it, you know what? Write it in the comments. But basically, it was, you got your broom, you got your Mickey Wayward Sorcerer, and you got your Stitch, who is Rockstar. The brooms are cheap, and they come into play, and when they leave play, Mickey gives you the option of putting that broom back in your hand. And then Stitch comes in, and anytime you bring a character into play, you have the option of exerting that character and drawing a card. So basically, every turn, this guy would attack with a broom, kill it, bring it back into his hand, and then play it again, and it's a cheap card. So for, I think, like 2 lore, you basically get to draw a card. You do have to exert that broom, so it's available for attack next turn, but you were going to attack with it anyway. These brooms are never going to go questing for lore, unless it's just an absolute emergency. So this is a neat little machine to draw cards in a way that, you know, normally you might not be able to. As long as you can keep Mickey and Stitch safe, you can just do this the entire game. And it's not like either of those cards is particularly expensive. You can cast Stitch on a lesser Stitch. I think he's like a 6. But, you know, even if you got this thing going at turn 6, with a couple of bodyguard characters, you could have this running for half the game before I got wise to it. But I'm, you know, particularly dense. None of them seemed particularly rare cards, but I still asked him, because, you know, it's a topic of concern, where are you getting these cards? And he said that it only took a couple of days going to Target, going to Walmart, to find out that they were never going to have them in stock. And those pictures you see on Reddit of people just walking in and taking everything from a Target, you know, it happens, even in small towns like the one I was visiting for this story. This guy's personal experience started on, I want to say the game came out on the 1st. He found out about the game on the 2nd, after all the cards were already sold. And then he read somewhere that GameStop had their shipment delayed and they were going to get them a week late. So he drove to every GameStop in the state to grab as many cards as he could. And it's fine because it's him, and 2 of these kids were his, and the missus were also playing. So he's, you know, got a family of 4 that he's got to provide cards for. And that as far as getting more cards, because, you know, 4 people, that's a lot of decks, especially if everyone wants more than one, that you got to keep your eye on eBay, Facebook Marketplace. This one kid chimed in and said, "My dad's only got ripped off on Facebook Marketplace once." And I'm like, okay, kid, I wouldn't go around telling people that. I'm sure your dad doesn't appreciate it. But you know, I'm sure he was doing it for you, kid. So, you know, good on you. But that if you can grab something, a starter deck with a pack on it, or a Luminaire Trove, or even a loose pack by itself for $12 or less, that he buys it, especially if it's free shipping, and that they open it as a family, you know, sitting around the old kitchen table, busting packs open, seeing who gets the foil card. I was just about to leave when the other dad walked into the room. Apparently, all these kids weren't the responsibility of just one man. And we got to talking, and he pulled out a deck. And again, I told him I had a starter deck, and he put that one away. And he pulled out a princess deck that he had been working on for his wife. And I thought that was, okay, that's great. So it's a deck you're actually working on right now. There might not be perfect mechanics in it. And it was actually my first win against a stranger, which was nice. So we played 4 games, and I won 1 with a starter deck. The game sort of seemed to go in slow motion, starting out very similar to the kinds of games that I play at home, until I started getting a real feel for what I was doing and started just amassing one extra character, another extra character. Suddenly I had 4. I was mopping up his as they came out, and it became very apparent that I was pulling into the lead. This Sapphire Steel deck sure does bank a lot of ink, though, and by like the 8th turn, I'm staring at like 9 ink and nothing to do with it. So I might actually try to buy just some bigger common cards to slip in there, maybe a few steel. Ooh, you know what? Some of those giant fairies would be nice. That would be fun in my steel deck. I don't think I'm going to go spending 12 or 15 bucks on booster packs, though, or God help us with whatever the troves are going for. There was a brief topic of conversation. We were talking about those D23 cards and how much they're worth, and suddenly the conversation turned to, well, I have these enchanted cards and I'm not actually going to play with them because they're just too valuable. Should I get them graded? And since we've been talking about this every couple of weeks, I was like, yeah, if you plan on getting rid of them, getting them graded is actually not a bad idea, because you're solely looking at monetary value. Getting it graded can significantly increase the resale value on the secondary market. The question then became, do we do PSA or Beckett? And I think it's widely regarded that Beckett is a little more stringent when it comes to grading cards, so that Charizard, at a Beckett 10 is going to sell for a little bit more than a PSA. But the PSA has more brand recognition. And when it comes to those maybe not strictly in the know, but with a little more cash in their pockets, which I think is most likely your average Lorcana consumer, PSA is going to pull ahead as far as getting you that little extra on that eBay auction. So, if you've got that Elsa, you got that enchanted Elsa, go for it. Go for it. Send it in. Send your kids to college. You got a couple of them. And that was it. I was there for like 2 hours, just sort of hanging out and talking to people. It was fun. It wasn't usually how I spend a Friday night, but I'm sort of a homebody. I walked through the sales area on my way out, and I got a couple of D10s. I found that in my old age, trying to find that one number on a D20 can be a little daunting. But 2 D10s has you covered all the way up to 99. And, you could pick up 2 of those for $1.50. Not too shabby. Will I return to this small town game store? Probably. I think there's a definite possibility that they're going to call me back, fingers crossed, with a couple starter decks or maybe a couple booster boxes. That'd be nice, actually get some cards. Cards in my hot little hand. But speaking of PSA, I don't know, it's been a while since we looked in at what those D23 cards are coming in for. And that Captain Hook, now that was a year ago. That was a full year ago. And at a PSA 10, that Captain Hook foil card is going for $1,900. I feel like he went for more maybe 6 months ago, but I don't know. The market's volatile. It's figuring itself out. I think now that you can get that card out of a pack, maybe people are realizing where it fits in the pantheon. Though you're never going to go back to D23 and get any of these 6-pack for $60 ever again. The Robin Hood's coming in at $2,100. I've actually, he's got evasive, if I remember correctly. And I'd like to put him and Pongo and a couple more evasive characters into a deck and just see what happens. I don't think your average deck has the wherewithal to withstand that many evasive characters. I mean, there's not enough smashes and fire the cannons in the world to deal with, 2 Robin Hoods and 2 Pongos. Maleficent, that big dragon. And man, weren't we all excited to see that card when it came out at D23? That's a beautiful card, but we didn't really understand the implications of getting it into play. And it's valued at a PSA 10 right now of $3,000. That Cruella de Vil card is worth only $2,200. Not as impressive. I mean, she doesn't have wings or anything. Stitch is coming in at $2,500. That Mickey is coming in at $3,100. And I heard somewhere, this is completely unsubstantiated, I don't even know if this is true, that there are fake Mickeys out there. And, who would even know? You could print them up and put them in little foil slips, and I might get one just to say that I have it, fake or not. Elsa, though, well, no one's faking that Elsa card yet. That Elsa card is worth $7,000 at a PSA 10, which is, of course, the best 10. And if you were lucky enough to go on eBay and have the cash for a box of first chapter booster packs, you're going to pay about $360 with free shipping. And that comes out to about $15 a pack if you're keeping score, which is quite a bit more than retail. But at least you'd have cards. Okay, we're coming back next week with more of that really engaging Pixelborn action. We've got 4 more decks to try out, and I promise we'll do it before it hits its 1-year anniversary. Promise. But like we say, ashes to ashes, funk to funky. We know Mr. Toad's a junkie.